Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Mr. Chris Townsend. So, Chris,
yes, sir. Hey.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
So, Chris, you have all kinds of things that you are currently doing or things that you have done in the past. We'll get into a lot of that stuff. But tell us kind of about you, who you are, why you're on the podcast.
Yeah, well, I think the reason I'm on the podcast is because we've been friends for over a decade. So that's probably the why. From a business standpoint, I primarily operate in the roofing space. I had a roofing company, sold that, and now I have some equity in roofing, but I also do more consulting in the roofing space. So that's the big focus right now. And then we also have some other side projects I'm working on as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's kind of take it back to a little further back, a few years ago. Talk about you historically, and we'll get into all the other fun stuff. So, you grew up in where?
That's not an easy answer. I was born in California, but adopted at birth, and shipped me off to New York 2 days old. I was a big baby, so they let me. And then New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, 5 years each. And then I was in St. Louis for 5 years, and then I've been in DFW for 20, more or less. I left to travel a little bit, but
yeah, and then
been here.
Went to TCU.
TCU for the undergrad.
Yep.
Liberty for the masters.
Yep. And then ended up back here in Dallas, basically full time at this point. So
yeah.
So I know a lot about your history. Mm-hmm. Let's tell kind of the audience a little bit about your history. While you were going to TCU, or maybe shortly after, what was it that you were doing? What did you get into for work?
Well, TCU, I was just a frat boy, and I didn't try very hard in
full-time partier.
Mostly, yeah. I was a part-time student, full-time partier for sure. Worked out a lot still, but I was not a very studious individual. I had very little work ethic. Out of college, I got hired to write graduate level supply chain and logistics books, and I did that for about 6 to 8 months. The market crashed in 2008, and so I got laid off, went into retail, did that for 5 years, worked my way from sales to a general manager, which is about the time you and I met, maybe when I was getting out of that. And then I went to Bible school and ended up becoming a Bible professor for 6 years or so. And then I got into roofing.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because you and I have talked about it a little bit, is going through the retail space and kind of your experience there. Tell us how that helped develop you as an individual with being the manager there of that retail store.
I think that retail job might have been, it's the best training I've ever gotten in my life. They trained me how to sell. I remember every Saturday my boss would be hanging out, and I'd have to go and sell jeans to anybody that walked in the door. I was like, no matter who, no matter what, got to sell them jeans. That was the idea. So I learned that. I kind of systematized that sales process and was able to scale it with my sales team and everything.
Yeah.
And so we're really effective. I don't know for a fact, but I think last I checked, we still had the highest performance that location's ever had, to my knowledge, but it may have passed now.
Yeah. And then you eventually, like you said, became the manager of the store. And I guess that's where you kind of honed your skills that is probably a lot of what you use today with whether it's be advising people or helping manage companies. I would imagine that the retail thing kind of helped a lot.
Tremendous. Because, I still have so many things to work on, but they really did. It pushed me so far out of my comfort zone, not just on the sales side, but the management training that I had to go through was intense, and it was role playing, and it was all the stuff that makes people uncomfortable. They don't want to do, but that's really where growth happens. So it was a painful 5 years. It was challenging. I was not making a lot of money until I got into general management, and I would say I still wasn't, at the time it felt like I was doing well once I got into the management, but it was a lot of work. It was very hard, but it's probably I've owned businesses now, but it was one of the greatest growth seasons of my life professionally in terms of my abilities.
Yeah, that's cool. So one thing that we haven't talked with any of the guests about yet on the show is role playing and doing that. Talk to us about maybe just something that you guys used to do back in the day with, whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting. Kind of talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a role-playing standpoint, I think maybe the most successful that I had, you mean when at the retail store or
either one
in general? So in roofing, I think one of the most successful ones I had was we had a canvassing team, and canvassing teams take a lot of attention, because you've got guys that are going out in the field, knocking, cold, hot, rain, whatever. It's not something a lot of people want to do. And so it's hard to do it and maintain a positive attitude for a lot of people. And so keeping that machine running day in and day out is challenging. Now, what we would do that was so successful for us was we had daily meetings at my place, and we would have a general conversation about sales numbers, things like that. Then we would do role playing. And the role playing was really good because we'd sit in a circle and I'd say, what's the biggest objection, the hardest objection you guys got this week? And then I wouldn't just give them the answer. I'd say, okay, like, how do you respond to that? How would you respond to that? And so we'd sit around and kind of brainstorm collectively. And then we would practice role playing. We'd take ideas from everybody, practice role playing, and then we'd set a new standard for us. When you hear this, it's like an if-then statement. If you hear this, this is your response. And so we got pretty good at that. And within a month, I had 4 guys pulling about 160 appointments a month from roofing, which is pretty good. And that was in December with no storm. And like, if you're a roofer, this was December of 23. So we hadn't had a good storm in quite a while.
Yeah, and the roofers are the one exception to the rule where the roofers pay or pray for the bad weather, whereas everyone else prays for good weather.
They do frequently, yeah. No, I have a different model now that doesn't rely on the insurance, but yes, that's generally the case, and certainly in Dallas.
Yeah. So then it sounds like the role playing, and now we're kind of into what you currently do. That was a while ago, but it's basically still what you do now. With the role playing, that made a huge difference in kind of adding to the number of sales that actually closed.
Tremendous, because the guys that are, when they're with the customer, there's no one giving them feedback. Although now we have some technology to help with that, but they don't generally get feedback. And so it's very easy when you're alone to create bad habits and to live in bad habits and not even recognize that they're bad habits. So by putting all of that in a bit of a sounding board chamber where there's different voices speaking to things, helping people, it's a bit of a brainstorm session where you get, because you get different perspectives. So even if I'm the best salesperson in the team, there's something I can learn from the other guy. And so the idea of and it creates a more collaborative team environment to do it that way, but it's also fun. So what we would do is we'd go around, and once we actually start role playing, I always do the same thing. I'd say, Troy, go ahead and, you'll run it. So-and-so, Johnny will be the homeowner or whatever the situation is. And then at the end, I would say, all right, now I want to hear one thing that you would do differently and one thing that you liked. I start with the person who did it, so they review themselves first, and then everybody else does it. And so it creates, there's a book called Radical Candor I'm a huge fan of, but it's the idea that I think we're terrible communicators as a culture. I think we're passive-aggressive, we're aggressive. The one thing we aren't is assertive. We're not straightforward, at least down here. I'm a New Yorker originally in a sense, so like maybe I'm just more used to that straightforward talk, but I think that we sugarcoat things, we hide things, and so the idea of radical candor is getting used to feedback in giving it and receiving it so that it's constructive and caring, not, and there's like a quadrant for that. It's pretty interesting to look at. But yeah, that's the idea, is get them on a feedback loop so that they can improve and get used to hearing from other people how they're doing.
Okay. Well, let's we haven't done this yet, so let's do it. Let's role play. Let's take like a couple minutes here and kind of give how it works.
Okay.
So should I be the sales guy, you be the customer?
We can, yeah. What do you want to sell accounting services or you want to sell roofing?
I'll sell roofing. Why not?
Okay, cool.
Let's give it a shot. All right.
So you're gonna sell me on roofing.
I'm gonna knock on your door and I'm gonna sell you on a roof.
Do you want me to give you a pitch or are you just gonna run with it?
I'm gonna run with it.
All right.
And then you just give me the feedback.
How hard do you want me to be?
You just give me the feedback like you would with a guy. So
me, I'm terrible. I'm like, go away. Yeah, I'll ease up a little bit. I'll turn the hardness meter down a little.
All right, sounds good. So knock.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Mr. Townsend, I was in your neighborhood and thought I'd stop by and share a little bit about what I do and maybe see if my services are good for you.
Okay, I'm kind of in a hurry though, man.
Okay, well, just give me like 30 seconds and maybe it'll be worth your time. I can give you some value on something that really means a lot to you.
Okay, what you got?
All right, so we're canvassing the neighborhood, looking for people that might need a roof. We feel like we can provide something that would increase the value of your home for a price that's almost nothing for you. Let's see if maybe I can run something that makes sense to you, increase the value of your home, and it'll pay off for you one day.
I just got a new roof like 3 years ago from insurance, and it was free.
Well, we've had like several storms since then, so whether it be a new roof or a roof repair, something like that, I'll take a look at it. We'll make sure it's still good, that it was installed correctly, that it really is a good roof, and see if it's good for you. No cost at all to you, just our time.
Annie, you just lost an accountant. No, that's good, man. That's good.
All right, so give me the feedback then. What would you say?
Remember the rules. You got to give yourself feedback first.
Oh, I got to give myself.
Start positive. What's one thing you did well, and what's one thing you do differently?
All right, so one thing that I did well is I think that I was able to come back and respond correctly to what you said to me with something that might intrigue your interest. One thing that I would do differently is go do some research on the roofing industry before pitching somebody.
I mean, and that would be my only feedback is like, that was very good. There's information you don't have that would be useful in that conversation, but no, that was really good.
Yeah.
Certainly for what you have, that was good. So things that I liked. First of all, you were calm. Okay, so and maybe it's because we're sitting and in a chill environment, but in most people, when I role play with them, the anxiety comes up so quick, and it's like they want to vomit out a bunch of information as quickly as possible so they can stop talking, but then they don't know how to stop talking, they don't know how to shut it off, and they just keep talking, and they're like, I don't know. So it's like that's what happens a lot of the time for people naturally, and so you didn't do that for starters. Generally the content was good, especially for the lack of roofing knowledge. Now I go a slightly different direction with it.
Okay.
If you had an insurance deductible, it was usually a dollar figure at one point. It was like $500, $1,000, $250. And then around the time I started, it had been switching pretty aggressively towards a percentage of the property value. So they did a 1%. And then we started to see these 2% here and there. And then we saw these things called ACV policies, which is effectively where they depreciate the roof based on the age, wear and tear, et cetera. And just like a car depreciates, they depreciate the roof. Now, normally what they do, if you've been through this process, is they split the checks. You get one check up front, you get the second check on the back end once the work's done, and they have the invoices is how they make sure the work is getting done and you're not eating the deductible and all that stuff. They switched to this type of a policy where you never get the back money. So between these deductibles that are now 2%, 3%, 4% and the insurance, you might have a $25,000 roof and the insurance company is only going to pay you $10,000. So I saw this coming about 6 years ago because I saw a couple of these policies and I was like, I know human nature and I understand big business and any opportunity that they can use to not make those payments, I think they're going to probably take. So I have sales presentations from 4 years ago where I said in the sales presentation to homeowners, 2 things are going to happen over the next 5 years. The price of your roof is going to skyrocket, which it has. I had no idea how bad. With COVID and everything, the material prices have probably 50% up in the last 4 or 5 years at least. And then, labor's up a bit, not compared to the material, but it's definitely up. So it's gone up considerably. Inflation, et cetera. But then on top of that, we now have these policies where homeowners are really getting stuck with the bill. Most homeowners can't afford that. And so I saw this coming, and I'm like, this is both a problem and an opportunity. So I spent years researching how to not rely on insurance to be a roofer. And I studied it, and we were able to implement it successfully in Dallas, Fort Worth in 2020, 2021, which is I would say is probably the hardest market for roofing in the nation. In a way, it's the best, and in a way, it's the worst. There's so much competition. There's so much race to the bottom on pricing and things here. It's hard. But we have guys that are selling. They sell it about, now it's a slightly better product, but they're selling with healthier margins and running a company properly. That's what a lot of the problem is with a lot of the roofing industry is it's effectively a sales guy who learned the ins and outs of the business enough to where they could put one together themselves, but they lack a lot of the systems to create a consistent customer experience journey. So for me, if I'm going to own a company, it bothers me if Troy gets a different experience than Tommy and Alex and Tori and all these different, and every single person gets a different experience. Yeah, I don't want that. I mean, unless it's uniquely good for some reason, but you know what I'm saying is if it's chaos, if it's dependent upon an individual to provide that experience, and I don't have the systems in place to make sure that all of my customers are getting a generally similar minimum level of experience across the board, I'm doing something wrong. And I think that this is why I got in the roofing industry is someone invited me in to help them build a door-to-door canvassing team. And I saw that they had no systems in place to track it. I'm like, how are you going to take care of your customers if you don't know who they are? Yeah. And so, you need a CRM and all these things. So that's really heavily what I do. Now I train on the retail side, but a lot of what we do is actually implementing the systems to create a consistent customer experience journey from start to finish, which makes everybody's life easier.
Well, let's start where you kind of said that. Why did you even transition from what you were doing, which is being in theology essentially, to roofing? Like, why did you switch in the first place?
Money. I mean, sorry. It's just we were broke. I was married at the time. We were terribly poor. It started as a side hustle. It was just like we were living on $45,000 a year.
And then a side hustle helping a friend, or like, how did you get introduced to it?
That was the idea. Yeah, it was a student / friend / I think we went. I don't know if he was. No, maybe he wasn't a student. He was just a friend. I think we'd been students together when I was a student at the school. Anyway, but he was like, yeah, I'm trying to basically duplicate himself. So he's having some entrepreneurial ideas of, I don't want to do the canvassing myself. I want to have someone else do that. Can you do that for me? So he asked me to join him and help him do that. And then the owner of the company asked me to do it for the whole company. And I said, how do you want me to track it? And he said, Microsoft Excel. And I was like, ooh. I'm like, you're doing $10 million. I'm making, my wife and I collectively are at about 45 grand here. His company's worth 10 million and he's trying to track hundreds and hundreds or thousands of leads in Excel. I'm like, this is an opportunity. I need to fix this. Yeah. And I was like, if you can do $10 million, which at the time to me was an insane number. It's still a good number, but it's an insane number where I was. And so it was very eye-opening to me that there was a lot of opportunity in this space, and there's quite a bit. So the real answer is I needed income. And then I also was going through some life changes, which gets a little bit more complicated in my relationship with God and everything, and my relationship with my wife, and which are both, in a uniquely good way, good position, just not they didn't align with this school's ethos and value systems and everything. So it was time for me to step down from that anyway. So I ran them dual for a while, and then eventually I stepped away not because of the roofing, but because of just the lifestyle was no longer appropriate for their system.
Yeah. So you went through all that. You eventually decided to go full-time into roofing. And then at some point you decided to not only be a roofer, but also open up your own business in the roofing space.
Yeah.
What was that transition like to where you wanted to, for lack of a better way of putting it, bet on yourself?
That's crazy. That's a really good way to say that, because I had never bet on myself. And even at that point, I'd say I didn't really bet on myself at that point. I had always done work for other people as a consultant, mostly because I was afraid to start my own company. I didn't know how. No one ever taught me. No one teaches us taxes. You guys can't agree on them half the time anyway.
That's true.
Same thing with law, same thing with medicine, same thing. I mean, you name it. Like, our whole world is so complicated, and there's so much opportunity. You know, when I talk to people now and I realize, like, the weight that, you know, even small business owners, if you're doing 7 figures in business or anything like that, 8 figures, 9 figures, certainly, there's a lot you're responsible for. And I remember when going online and getting a $300 LLC was like a huge step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now those things are like filling out a piece of paperwork for a project. You know, it's like and so the more you kind of stack on top of that with experience, the easier and more comfortable you get. I had none of that at the time. You know, I think I had started an LLC for my consulting business and was trying to do some basic bookkeeping, but I had no skill set in that. So I had to learn all of it. But what happened was I was working with a pair of guys, 2 partners, and they had a roofing company. They decided to split ways. They both asked me to partner with them in different capacities, and I picked one, and we went more or less 50-50 on a company. It started 51-49 and then transitioned to 50-50 after I proved myself, because it was my first company. So he wanted to, which is fair. I was like, yeah, you know, sure. And then within 6 months, he was like, all right, yeah, you're good. And so then we built it over 3 years and sold it in 22.
Yeah. It's funny hearing you say that you were scared to bet on yourself back then and that you had never really thought about it, because anybody who knows you now, if you were to call me up and say, hey, I think I'm going to go work for somebody, I would probably say, Chris, are you okay?
It's not an inaccurate assessment, but I appreciate that. But, you know, the funny thing is, the first time I think I really bet on myself was in October. So what happened was, I made a decent amount of money on the sale. Not great, but like it was a low 7-figure exit, and it should have been more, but we got a lot of equity in the new company.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that didn't work out, and I went through a hard time there. I'll just say that. And so I went through, and then right after that, I started selling SEO services. Did really, really well on that, because the guy who had sold for us, he's a really good guy. He's really, he was really good at what he did. He got his #1 ranking in DFW, and I got him a bunch of business. But I don't know 100% what happened, but he got spread pretty thin. I think he opened some other businesses and stuff, and it just, Google changed, AI changed, and they didn't keep up with it, and so I lost that. So it was really hard. And then I had a client who was in a really good position, and then they had some personal stuff come up that dissolve their business. It was one thing after another, after another, after another, and it was
just another day in Chris Townsend's life.
I tell you, it's like, you know the RPG characters at the beginning when you get to give them all the stuff.
Yep.
Up until recently, I felt like the luck one was at a zero. It was gave me a lot of good features to work with, but the luck one's always been a little difficult. Lately, it's been kind of eerily positive. I'm
waiting for it to
over
fall.
My shoulder. Yeah, who's gonna get me now? Yeah, but no, for sure. That was anyway.
Yeah. So one thing that I did want you to talk about, and it can be more kind of a generalized thing.
Sure.
But a lot of the people that are listening either are self-employed, or they will be self-employed, or their curiosity is piqued on what being an entrepreneur looks like. And one of the things in an entrepreneur's life that happens a lot is an exit of some type. So when you were going through your exit, what do you think some of the most challenging things were with, I guess, deciding to exit? How do you price it? Who do you look for?
Great question.
Yeah,
I would do it obviously very differently the second time around.
Yeah, well, everybody would probably.
Right, for sure. And I was doing some research. That I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but it was 4 out of 5 people that exit they get removed as CEO, and frequently with their equity.
Ouch.
It's very common apparently. And I've talked to people, in the roofing industry that have exited, and they're like, it can happen for sure. So, paper up real good. Also understand how lawsuits really work, and figure out if you're going to sue somebody over it and how that works and everything. So those are all complicated conversations, and that wasn't even my suggestion. I'm just saying, if you're going to go that route, you want to know what you're getting into. Yeah. There's a ton that goes into it too, because you have stock versus asset. There's you know, you have to learn about the different types, you know, different types of contracts and agreements, LOIs, all that sort of thing. So there's a huge learning curve because it's a whole new space if you're not used to it. But then it gets exciting because like that's where the money is. It's in the combination of entities. Mergers and acquisitions is like in the business space to me. That's about the most exciting thing you can do, which is what I'm really kind of working towards getting in now.
Okay. So do you feel like I guess the lack of knowledge was probably the most challenging thing when going through the M&A space? For
me, yeah. I mean, just and you got to think too. Like this is a private equity firm that's buying us. Those guys do this all the time. This is their language, and so for me as a nobody roofer guy who just built his first company, it's hard to know where to get your information from, and it was tough. There's so many factors to weigh. Are we going up? Are we going down? What trajectory do we think we're going to head? How long do we think it's going to be stable? Because these things affect that valuation. Your valuation can change day over day, based on various factors and things. So making sure that you're aligned with that, big time important.
Well, I'm sure to a certain extent it probably felt like the example we just gave where you were in a room with people that do M&A all the time. It's almost as if me and you got in a room together and we were both asked to sell roofing.
Yeah.
One of us has a tremendous amount of experience in what
does it. Or if we got into an accounting battle, like, come on, it's just not fair. So get some representation might be we had legal representation, but it might be smart to get some more like broker consultation, people that have been through it, have people in your corner that are more PE focused. I was and then there's the negotiation side, which is a lot of what I do anyway. I would consider myself to be a pretty good negotiator. A lot of what I do is help people. I do it for people. I almost mediate comp structures for people is like one of the many things that I provide for my clients is if they're trying to figure out, hey, what's good for the sales team, what's good for us, how do we do this, where do the profit margins lie? Same thing with a negotiation for acquisition. How do we make this make sense for everybody? That's the question you got to ask. And so I'm usually pretty good at that, but it's a challenge when you're dealing with big numbers, when you're dealing with companies, when you're dealing with people's lives. These are that's another question you have to ask, like what happens to my team when this transitions? Yeah, and I think that a lot of people maybe don't think about that correctly, and I'm glad that you pointed it out. I do a lot of reading, and one of the books that I'm reading now talks a lot about acquiring businesses, but I mean, it still talks about general M&A. And she points out that it has to be a win-win for both sides. And it can be a win-win. And I feel like people almost think it's like a win-loss, like a zero-sum game. And it's not like that. No. It really is kind of what you said. You have to make it a win for the seller, but then there is a way to make it a win for the buyer, even if the seller wins. Well, and so that's where I usually thrive is coming up with situations that benefit everybody. And so I've got some pretty cool stuff I'm working on with that right now because effectively my systems were good 4 years ago. Our technology is light years ahead. I mean, it's really creepy how far we've come since I sold my company. The stuff that I tried to build technologically back then with industry-specific software, it couldn't be done. I'm going through I still have my original blueprints that I used. I'm stripping massive portions of it because I can automate it all now, which is what I tried to do 4 years ago, but the technology wasn't there. I would be so far ahead if I had just not had the limitations we had technologically, which now it's exciting. It's a little scary because there are jobs that are going to go bye-bye very quickly. Yeah. But it's also really exciting for creators because we have infinite power at our fingertips coming. Well, that's what I keep hearing on all these podcasts or things that I listen to with kind of AI in general is that, you're going to have a lot of jobs be replaced by AI, but it's going to make anybody who has any sense of creativity, and it doesn't even have to be creative in a sense that, you can create music. It's just almost out of the box thinking. think this is the way I look at it, and this is why I think I'm going to be rich, frankly. No, I mean, really, because I think that money comes from producing value that people want to consume, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I look around our world, and I see how much stuff we have that just sucks, like whether it's our philosophy or our culture or the way we handle dating or the way we like everything is broken. And I'm like, cool, let's fix all this stuff.
Chris Townsend, the dating expert, is that how
No, that's my kryptonite.
That was one of the as you were saying earlier, creating your character. They said, love life zero.
It's not zero. It's I'm trying to keep it closer to zero. Yeah. It's a distraction right now. I'm focused. I think this is really where I am with that. I think AI is going to replace a large portion of our current labor force from anything intellectual in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And then and it'll just keep getting larger and larger portions will be absorbed by AI replacement. And I think robotics is, 5 to 10 years behind that on its replacement. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, it is going to be either we destroy ourselves or this world turns into a big party because it's going to become so cool and so creative. Like if you just look at all right, here's for instance, if I want to buy if I want to buy a trash can for my truck, okay, now they have those. Mm-hmm. I looked the other day, I'm like, why do I have all these unsightly wires around my place for charging my phones? I wish they had retractable ones. Go on Amazon. Oh, they have them. It's like there's so much at our fingertips that we have access to if you have the resources for it. So my goal right now is just to get stacked up on resources so that I can play because I want to make some difference in this world.
Well, I think that you've kind of hinted at this, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, which is kind of what you're saying. Do you feel like one of the reasons, obviously one was technology, mm-hmm. but another reason that you took such a huge step forward from 4 years ago to today was because you sold your business and it kind of took away all the distractions and you actually had time to like sit and think?
No, because that's not how my brain works. I spent 3 years spinning or 2 years spinning, just kind of trying to figure out what to do with myself because I lost myself when I left my company.
Mm-hmm.
It was my identity was very much tied up in that. My retirement was tied up in that. My career path, a lot of it was tied up in it. And, I sold everything I owned and moved to Mexico for a while and traveled around and, and that was good in its own sense. But no, I think what it did do though, is when I decided, so what happened was in October, I had not a lot, but I had a decent amount of money just sitting in the bank basically. And I'm like, I don't trust the economy. This is weird. We got the AI thing. Commercial real estate's janky. I think there's a huge tech bubble. We've got this international stuff. There's so many weird things going on. I'm like, I'm nervous about the economy and the market. I was worried about real estate, so I sold everything. But I think, I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity from it, but you have to be positioned right. And if you're not, it's going to be tough, I think.
Well, then let's talk about what you're doing today and what you sounds like you're planning on doing in the future. So you do a lot of consulting now. And like you mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, you do a lot of consulting in the roofing space.
Yeah.
So tell us kind of what it does either day to day or week to week, month to month. Like, what do you do now?
Professionally, specifically?
Yeah, professionally.
Yeah. I spend most of my time in front of I call it my command center. I've got, 4 screens up. I've got my communications, because I have 20 different I have WhatsApp and Slack and Discord and SMS and email and all. I got 20 different communication segments here, and then I've got my calendar and my to-do list and all that. And then so that's what I do is I'm on meetings most of the day. Almost all of it's remote. I work from home. And then it's client meetings, it's meetings with vendors, it's meetings with my team, it's meetings with dev teams, it's meetings with people about new opportunities. Frankly, I do a bad job of saying no to that stuff. There's too many there's too many things coming my way I want to be a part of, and too many ideas iterating as I continue. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. This could use a lot of work. This would be better.
Yeah.
You know, I come up with new ideas all the time, but now I have AI, and so soon enough I'm going to have it where I speak it and it'll iterate, because now this is the cool thing. This is what I think is going to happen with a lot of jobs, because it's happening for me right now. As I'm creating, I need help. You know, like I have more ideas than I know, like way more ideas than I know what to do with. So I need someone by my side constantly now. And I'm just like, I just put out an ad to hire someone I've had assistants, but I haven't had like more of a business assistant, someone actually stuck by my side and like, I'm going to give you my phone. You handle the communications. I'll have a different one that I do the work on. And, you know, because I'm on my phone all the time. My neck hurts because I'm looking down at the thing and I'm trying to do the computer at the same time and I'm getting messages. And it's so what's happened now is as I start to iterate more and more and we start to expand the vision, there is room for people, but the roles I think are going to change considerably. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of executive assistant type work. There's going to be a lot of, I think home assistance is going to be huge. Like people have cleaners. I have someone who cooks for me, cleans, they do my returns, you know, all kinds of stuff. Anything I can offload to other people, I'm offloading. And I think that's going to continue to happen, where you have to do less and less things yourself if you're an entrepreneur, which is kind of how that works anyway. But I think now specifically with the tech, it's going to really spin that up, because there's so many things. You know, I haven't gone to buy groceries in how long? I just have them shipped to my door, and then I have someone else cook it.
Yeah.
You know?
So I read a book, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before. It's called Buy Back Your Time. It's by Dan Martell. I don't know if you've read that.
I haven't, but I'm familiar with it. And that's it's funny because I saw that book. Yes. I have another friend who's reading that, and I saw it yesterday and talked to him about it.
Yeah. And that's exactly kind of what he talks about, is basically everything you said. What was it in your brain that kind of said, okay, there's no reason for you to go to the grocery store anymore because that's costing you this amount of time. You could be doing this. Kind of what did that transition look like?
I realized this stuff young. So I grew up in a W-2 kind of house. You know, my mother was the breadwinner for the most part. She worked her way up from a secretary in New York in the 80s all the way up to a VP of Microsoft. She was, you know, badass. But it was a W-2 mentality. It was go to work every day, you know, you get a paycheck, you get a retirement account. It was that W-2 mentality that was very common then. Entrepreneurship's completely different. And, you know, it's so weird. When I was in 7th grade, I wish I could go back and meet myself as a child. I don't know why I did this. But I was on vacation in Cape Cod, and there's like, go buy yourself a gift from the gift shop or whatever. I bought a bumper sticker that said, "Don't steal, government hates competition." I don't know why. So my point though is that for an entrepreneur, your life really does in many ways become a business. Now there's obviously boundaries on that. But I look at, you know, there's a line from Jay-Z. He says, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." So like, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a business. And I look at myself that way. Now the IRS might see it slightly differently, and there's, you know, I got to be careful about what I'm, you know, calling a business expense. But at the end of the day, like, almost everything that I do is going towards the vision. Yeah. I eat, breathe, and sleep this thing. Like, I have someone come in and cook my food so that I don't have to spend time on my personal stuff, so I can spend it on the business. Everything I do is mission oriented. And there's a really cool video about Kevin O'Leary talking about Steve Jobs. Have you seen this?
I listen to him a lot, but I don't think I've seen this.
Oh man, I love this. He's like, Steve was an asshole.
Oh, I have seen this actually. Yes.
And he talks about how Jobs was like no one knows what they want. I tell them what they want. Yeah, which, like, whatever on that. Although, frankly, like, he wasn't wrong.
Isn't he talking about the amount of noise?
Yes, so that's what he gets into next. Is he talks about, I don't remember that it's like frequency or noise, but yeah, he talks about how you have disruption. There's these different things that pull on you. I got to go back and listen to the exact verbiage that he used because I like it. But it's noise versus. Do you remember?
It's noise versus something.
It's like stasis. It's not stasis, but it's like you're functioning in the right way.
Yep.
And so he said that Steve Jobs was very heavily this. He had cut out all the noise. And I'm going to say something bold here.
All right.
To some degree, politeness is noise. And I think what guys like Steve Jobs and Elon have, and Kevin O'Leary says that Elon's the only one who's more, I don't remember, what's that word? Less noise than Jobs.
Yeah.
He said he's like 100%
zero
focused.
noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard that and I was like, man, I have so much noise. I have so much noise. Now the problem is I realized that I started to get frustrated with the noise, and you can lose your humanity in that, because effectively what these guys are doing and what I'm doing a little bit intentionally is I'm turning myself into a machine. Mm-hmm. Quite intentionally. I mean, I'm like, I don't want to think, I don't want to feel. I'm a very emotional guy. I'm trying to not suppress that, but cultivate it in a way that I'm able to just function without thinking. I want my thought to go to whatever I'm supposed to be doing. So for instance, if I go to the gym without a plan to lift weights and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what should I do now? What should I do next? My energy is going into planning, not into doing. Likewise, if I haven't thought about the proper form for a bench press and how to brace appropriately and everything and engage my core and all the stuff that I didn't do for the first 25 years I lifted, I'm not optimal there, and I'm thinking about that. So instead, I want to be focused on my mind-muscle connection and everything like that. The only way you're able to be present, in my opinion, well, not the only way. The only way to be present and fully effective is to create that much structure and cut out the noise.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, but it does lend itself to like a little bit of like sociopathy and narcissism because you're so mission oriented and so self oriented because as the mission driver, it's your responsibility to protect the key persons, which is yourself.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to balance because it's a heavy, you can lose yourself in that. I've had to pull back sometimes.
Well, I think the way that Kevin O'Leary explains it on that particular video is a really good way to think of it, because he talks about how Steve Jobs or Elon or whoever it is has whatever the list of goals is. Even Kevin himself has this, where maybe it's 5 things that, like, regardless of what happens that day, these 5 things get done. And they start with that so that...
That's right.
Yeah, so that even if there is noise, those things get done.
And I put that down right after watching that video. It's in my Trello board, and I rolled it out with my team, and I already forgot about that being the main point, and I've got 1,000 things on my to-do list. Thanks for reminding me what the point of the video was. Yeah, exactly. It's narrowing it down to 3 to 5 things.
Yeah.
And focusing on your core elements that you need to do.
Yeah, and I think that like that for entrepreneurs is a good way to think of it, because
it is.
That what you need to do is you need to think big picture and think, okay, it's kind of like getting out of the trees and seeing the big picture, where if these 5 things happen today and then these 5 other things happen tomorrow, and then you repeat this process, that even if you were to not do anything else, if you accomplish those, then the end goal 5 years from now, where you're trying to be in a certain place in business or financially, that if you just knock out those things, that everything else might make a slight difference, but those are the big things.
It's like an 80-20 kind of deal.
It is, yeah.
And I think that's something I could use a lot of work on.
Yeah. So let's get back into kind of what you're doing today. So one of the things that's on your LinkedIn that you kind of promote yourself as, and maybe this is winding down, but is fractional COO. So kind of explain to us what exactly that is for what you're offering.
So in the roofing space, it's effectively leveraging my mind and skills and connections as a kind of like a business owner that doesn't have equity most of the time. I just come in and give advice, and then, executive level advice. So for instance, what I do, and it's challenging. Okay, so you understand this is business owners. You're stuck dealing with the hardest problems. Mm-hmm. They come to me with the ones they can't solve, and I help them solve them. That's what I do.
Okay.
As a fractional CO. Now, structurally, what that looks like is I have 3 major packages: do it yourself, which I don't really do a lot for that. I have group calls that they can be a part of, and then I have a portal with a bunch of information in it. And say a bunch of information. I have blueprints, I have contracts, I have everything you need, but you have to figure out how to put it together yourself. I've done with you, which I do a 2-week fast start. And this is the COO, the fractional COO element of this that's now supported by a bunch of copying content and trainings and all that sort of thing. So the done with you version, the way I'm able to help people maximally is as I start by creating a to-do list. So I have a whole adapts process, audit, design, arrange, purge, technologize, and subcontract. So I have a flow that I use to work people through. But what I do is because it's roofing specific, I wanted to stay niche because if I shift to another one, the deviations can be considerable, even a different home service, it can be considerable, things I don't know that I don't know, which is where I become problematic as a consultant. The more I know, the better I can do. And so roofing, I know inside and out. So I can look at that and say, okay, here's a list. And I've about 150 questions I go through on a call with them. It takes me an hour and a half with most companies. I just rip off questions. Do you do this? Do you do this? How would you rate your ability to do this? Do you know what this is? And I go through and they're like, yes, no, yes, no, yes. And I just make notes. And at the end of that, I take all of that information, process it, put it together in a to-do list form. I say, okay, based on what you've told me, so I audit. I've looked at what you do. I'm going to design what I would recommend you do. And it's mostly based on my models, but with their nuances put into it.
So then how I work. I work in numbers. That's how my brain works.
For sure.
So do you have, when you're going through that list of 150 questions, do you have dollar amounts that you kind of say, okay, if they say yes to this question on 20 and they're at this size and they have this employees, then based off your experience, it's worth X dollar amount normally to that person? Like, how do you show or demonstrate to the business owner that this is the value that you think you can bring to them through that call?
Frankly, it's what I'm the worst at.
Okay.
I'm not the best at selling my own service because I'm way too nerdy about it and I go into way too much detail. So I'm hiring other people to sell it for me because I'm like, I want to show them the whole system because I geek out on it. I'm like, oh, look, you need to, and I have an integrated mind. So I'm like, oh, you need to understand how the lead flow works to understand why we do the collections this way, And so I nerd out on the whole thing. I'm like, no, don't change that because that'll tweak with this and that. It's like that's kind of how my brain works, and it's not conducive for sales. But at the end of the day, what I do is I point out the fact that their business has a lot of holes in it.
Okay.
And we've got solutions for pretty much all of them.
And then how does your pricing model work? Do you bill up front? Is it based off results at the end? How do you bill?
So for the first 2, the do it yourself, done with you, those are just monthly. We do a 3-month program, and then they have the option to continue monthly after that.
Okay.
For the done for you, that one I was gonna sell it, but I've decided I'm only gonna take equity positions for that because it's damn good, and I don't want to give it away.
Okay. And do you have like a pricing model in your head as far as like equity that you would ask for based off a certain size?
Yeah. So we're looking at a upfront cost for the implementation, and then a percentage of the increase. So we won't take from their baseline most likely, and it won't actually be equity. It'll be a profit split on new income.
Okay, gotcha. So it goes back to the thing we were talking about in the M&A. Then, if it's a profit split, then it's a win-win because you basically come in and you say, "Hey, I'm going to add this much to your bottom line by increasing sales this much. I just want a cut of it," but you still get a larger bottom line by the value that you're bringing to that company.
Yeah, and some of the stuff we can do on the M&A side is going to be nuts because of the way this industry is run. I'm about to do some really cool things with that. And so that the value I can bring to them is not just in increasing their EBITDA, but in increasing their valuations.
Okay. So let's talk in general. You've
Or their multiples. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So you've talked about the roofing space, how you just kind of like general business and like operations. Do you see yourself ever going into some type of acquisition that is outside of the roofing space, or do you? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already doing it. I've done it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did the watch thing for a while.
You did the watch thing for a while.
Watch thing for a while. I just bought a little like AI agency.
Okay.
For lead generation. That is, I haven't seen it work outside of the roofing space, but it's supposed to work pretty well for all businesses. So I just bought that product. And then I have a lot going on. I'm actually really interested in the experiential marketing space.
Oh, okay.
Cultivating experiences for people, like really high-end experiences, is kind of the direction I think I'll end up heading after some of this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what do you think long-term the future looks like you, as far as do you think you'll just sit back and be an owner and just consult on your own businesses?
World domination. No, I mean, really, I think I've got some big stuff planned, man. I mean, I've just been getting crazy vision lately. I'm seeing things. I'm seeing the possibilities of the technology, and I see the end game.
Yeah.
I see the end game, bro. So I'm like, I've never felt this way until the last week. I'm like, I'm coming for you, Elon. Like that's kind of the shift in the mentality I'm having right now. Is like I think I want to be on that level.
Yeah.
Not because I want to be on that level, but because I think that I have that much creative power.
So it's almost like it's kind of a hard way to put it, but it's almost like a game. It's like, it's not necessarily just the financial side. It's about like competing with those types of people.
No, because I don't want to compete with Elon. He'd kick my ass. It's not that. It's more of I get joy out of people receiving joy from my products.
Okay.
I get like that. I get, maybe that's an ego thing or whatever. Maybe it's just they say the difference between a hero and a villain is they have the same origin story. Have you heard this?
Mm-hmm.
Heroes and villains have the same origin story. Heroes or villains decide they start as orphans and they go through hardship, and the villain decides that they want to make people suffer for the pain they felt, and the hero decides they never want anyone to feel what they felt. And the truth is that I think we all have heroes and villains inside of us, and I certainly do. Growing up, I'm a 50 like the 50 Cent. I watch gangster flicks and root for the bad guy, turned off before the end because the bad guy dies. Like that was my mentality, right? Like I liked the bad guys. My favorite character was Bill the Butcher. I like villains that have some substance to them and character, but and there was that part of me, I was a high school dropout. I was a gangster. I beat people up. I robbed drug dealers. I was a rough kid, and I still have that animal, that primal in me, that fighter, that killer in me. But I also have like a healthier side that wants to help people. And I feel a tremendous amount of empathy. And I've caught myself crying multiple times over the last couple of weeks just over pain that I've seen other people experiencing. I'm seeing some of the stuff that's going on in the world. I'm seeing some of the hardship. I'm seeing, like, especially in the dating world, and I'm not a dating person, like, but I just see so many people getting hurt right now, and it's not a surprise. Like, when you look at our philosophies and things as a culture, it's like, of course this is what we're producing. And so when it comes to end game stuff and when it comes to the why behind it, it's because I want to stop that stuff from happening. I've been through some hard stuff lately. I lost a friend 2 weeks ago to crack. One of my best friends from high school died of a crack overdose like 2.5 weeks ago. And, I've had some rough situations in relationships and things like that. I've hurt people. I've been hurt. And I'm just like, there's a lot of room to help people do better. That's really my motivation. Plus, I want to do something special. Like, I want to create with my hands and my mind.
Yeah. One thing that we ask some of the guests that come on that I feel like is just kind of leaning into what you're talking about, and also I think you have a really healthy view of this, is as an entrepreneur, sometimes people get so consumed with the business that they lose sight of everything else in life, whether it's the humanity of other people or taking care of themselves. Talk to us about what are your views on taking care of your mental and physical health, and what are some of the things that you do to do that?
Do as I say, not as I do. So the things I do very well is I do have a lot of organization in my structure. I do have a healthy eating and exercise habits. My sleep is terrible. I sleep like 4 hours a night. I've got to get better at that. I did better the last 2 nights because I was with your wife actually at yoga, and she said, I don't know if she told you, but like I had to walk out because I was.
Yeah, she said you weren't doing good.
No, I was so fatigued, and my from on the computer so much, like I had misalignment in my back and stuff, and I was tweaking, and just I went to stand up off of something, and I kind of like blacked out and went back down. I was like, all right, I've pushed too far. So I found my physical limit, and I found my mental one several times because I get it's like the blood sugar kind of a hangry mentality. When I get too tired, I can get snappy and stuff like that, and so. The reality is I've been doing a terrible job about it lately. I've had such a hard time lately turning off. I think it was the weight of possibility is driving me into. I'll spin myself into a manic state almost, like a manic creative state when I'm producing, and I won't stop. Like I'm in bed at 11:30, iterating like. Let me run this, let me do that.
Yeah.
And then I won't stop. It's very, very hard for me to shut my brain off. And so just the last 2 days, I was like, all right, I have to stop because my body's telling me it's too far. So sleep is huge. That's the one thing I really suck at. Generally speaking, I think extremely long work days are not a good idea. I'm in a little bit of,
What's too long?
I don't know. It probably depends on everybody. I mean, I like the 4-hour work week mentality. That's where I got a lot of my stuff back in the day. I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan. But I think there's also, you can go too far on that. Like for me, I can handle a lot of work. I can go from 6 a.m. until 8, 9, 10 p.m. pretty easily, with maybe one cup of coffee. But it's not necessarily good for you. So I think I heard someone say 8 hours, like cut yourself off at 8 hours. Don't let yourself work more than that. I think generally speaking, that's a pretty good idea. Now, if you have deadlines and stuff, run it.
Deadlines.
For sure. But there's so many things that you can do. Yeah. You really... To keep yourself busy that long, you have to have a lot going on, I feel like.
Well, one of the guests that came on, which is Matt Barber, who you know well, he kind of talks about this, and I think you would agree with this statement.
You're talking about the grind culture?
Yeah, the grind culture. But I think that if you were to break down somebody's day and they said they worked 8 hours, I bet if you broke it down, it's really like 4 or 5.
I agree.
So I think kind of what you're saying is work 8 hours, like work 8 efficient hours. And if you work that, then you're right. That probably is the most somebody can handle.
If it's actually dialed in.
Exactly.
It depends on what you're doing too. That's the other thing. Is like, I used to work 12-hour shifts in retail and my body hurt. Now I work 12-hour shifts in this and my brain hurts. Yeah. Because I'm on, most of my calls are dealing with the hardest of the hard problems. This guy doesn't know what to do.
That will wear you out.
It does. It's exhausting. I was talking to someone else about that who's another consultant in the roofing space like a week and a half ago, and she was telling me the same thing. It's just you're there to be the stopgap on the hardest problems that a company can face, and takes a lot of brain power.
Yeah. So everybody always likes when I ask the guest this. So let's talk about a few of the fun stuff. Some fun, some just general questions. So you've mentioned this a couple times with luck not being something that's played much of a role in your life until maybe recently.
I mean, in some ways, but in others, no. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to rank luck, hard work, skill, how would you rank them? Why?
Oh, buddy. I'm going to put skill last.
Okay.
Which is hard to say, but I'm going to put skill last. And really, I would say there's a big, this is like a triangle thing for
Yeah,
sure.
you
They
can't
support
do
one
all.
another.
Exactly.
But skill, I think you can be really skilled and give up real quick, and it doesn't matter. I don't care how good you are. Most of the time, stuff doesn't work out so easy. So it's really, I mean, the whole thing about the can't quit. I mean, I breathe that. You know, that's more. I joke about this, but I say the can't quit thing's more of a curse than like a flex.
And for those who don't know, that is what your business is called. And
Yeah,
that's what
so I'm
you're
like Can't
referencing.
Quit Chris and Can't Quit Consulting. Yeah,
Yeah.
And so I went to do an Instagram handle at one point, and I was like, what kind of what's like core to me? I just don't give up. You know, I push hard.
So then, which is the most important, luck or hard work?
I mean, if it's pumping the right way, I got to go with luck. There's a lot of, I mean, you know, you just walk into the lottery and win it. Sure, that's cool. But I think by and large, it's the one I would count on the least.
Yeah. So you prepare for hard work, but you think the one that goes the furthest is luck.
I think it probably does. I mean, again, it all depends on so many sub-factors of what it is exactly doing and how they relate to one another. But, yeah, I think luck can catapult you really, really far really fast.
Yeah, so if I'm putting something out there for everybody to judge you on, Chris says luck is more important than hard work.
That's cool. Bring the comments on. Pump that algo.
Yeah. So,
basically, you don't have to work hard at all.
you don't
Let's
need to
get
work
some
hard.
really
Skill is way down there, so
Yeah.
you just need a lot of luck.
You just need a lot of luck. No, let's get some really inciting sound bites.
So here's kind of the fun questions, and then we'll wrap up with kind of a more serious thing. So you do all kinds of fun things with your life. One of those being travel. So where's the most fun place that you've traveled, maybe in the last year or two?
Well, I haven't done a lot of traveling in the last year or two. It's all been business. Let me think. Where did I go?
Yeah, maybe just the last one.
I would say, I'd say Spain was probably the most interesting overall.
Okay.
I spent about a month in Spain 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And
Okay.
That was cool. That was a good experience.
Okay.
But you know what's crazy? Everyone talks smack on the U.S. I'll tell you what, man, our infrastructure, like not having Amazon in some of these places, I'm like, oh, I can't get access to the things I buy a lot. You know, I got stuff to do. I need tools.
Yeah.
And the ease with which we can get anything done in the United States, I'm sure there's other places too, but
Yeah.
yeah. And even here's the other thing too is the United States is really interesting. It's very polarized. So everyone's like, oh, everyone in Europe's so healthy. It's like, no, they're just not obese. But they're drinking all day long, smoking all day long, and all they eat is carbs. Now, they might have cleaner ingredients than we have here, but I also can't find the healthy version of the stuff we have. Now our worst stuff is way worse than their worst stuff, but our healthy stuff, I don't know. I couldn't find the stuff I wanted over there.
So it's all
sometimes.
relative. So then
so.
a couple more quick ones. You mentioned the watch thing earlier. What's your favorite watch?
Brand would be AP. I'm a big Royal Oak guy.
Yeah.
I like those.
Any particular one?
Yeah, if I could pick one, it'd be probably the rose gold. It's like the most audacious. Probably the rose gold rainbow bezeled open work AP.
All right.
I like that one. My buddy's got the open work. He doesn't have the rainbow, but he's got he does have the open work. It's
Well,
very nice.
when you get it, you can show it to me.
I will. I got the brick right now, which is fun, but it's those are, I like the other ones.
Yeah. And then a favorite car.
You know, my favorite car I've ever owned is actually my Hummer, my EV Hummer.
Yeah.
It's so fun. I love that.
It looks cool.
It's great. The top comes off. It's fast. It's got a loud sound system. I'm obnoxious, so I like all that stuff. It's just, it's a lot of fun, man. I really enjoy that vehicle.
Okay. And then last one that's kind of a more serious question that we ask every guest, whether it's somebody that's in your space, somebody that's wanting to become an entrepreneur, somebody that's been an entrepreneur for a long time, what's the best advice that you could give them that's general?
I would read Mastery by Robert Greene.
Okay.
I think that if I was looking at starting a career, I think that's a pretty good place to start, because ultimately it talks about, I think the whole model we have with school is kind of not efficient. You know, the whole 12 years of school and then another 4 in college. I just don't think that's super efficient. I think more practical experience is good. And that book advocates very heavily for kind of bypassing the schooling and joining in some form of apprenticeship, paid or unpaid. But I really kind of think that as time goes on, except if you're like an accountant or and even then, getting some kind of actual practical experience while you're learning, I think is unmatched in terms of its efficacy for growth.
Okay. So you would basically just say, figure out some way to have some experience to something that you're interested in.
Yeah, so the Mastery says it'll talk about picking something that you're passionate about and then learning that craft with excellence. You know, the Picasso quote, learn the rules like masters so you can break them like an artist. I think that's when you really become – I would say that's where the future is going for creators is the people who can become a master. And I think AI and technology allow us to become a master in a subject much, much faster. But it's the people who can become a master and then break those rules to create art out of things. And I think that the more that we find people capable of doing that and really fine-tuning things, it's like this old BNSF commercial from the 90s. We don't make a lot of the things you use. We make a lot of the things you use better. And I think that's where the future is headed, is people going in and figuring out how to make art out of different parts of life.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, for coming on. It's
pleasure.
10 years ago, me and you sitting down looking at the future. I don't think either one of us would have projected
Crazy. Very different world.
Yeah.
Very
well,
different
awesome.
world.
Thank you.
Awesome.
We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man. Yeah, you too.